Hello everyone and welcome back to the SteemTrail Gaming News. Today is the 5th July of 2018. My name is Kralizec and I will be your host for the evening. Today we are going to take a look at two stories. First, we're going to take a look into France, where the French gambling regulator has deemed that loot boxes are not gambling. Well, technically, because of the way the laws are created in France. And secondly, we're going to take a look at We Happy Few in Australia, as the game is no longer banned there, or technically banned. A lot of technicalities today, I know, but let's go back to France and look at my all-time favorite topic, not loot boxes. So, people who watch the show regularly will know my opinion of loot boxes. I personally view them as a psychologically damaging tool, especially to children, as it uses the same exact psychological principles that slot machines use. And thus I do consider it gambling, in a sense of the word. It really depends on how exactly you define gambling. And the French gambling regulator, Ariel, I don't know how the fuck this is pronounced, it's French, has come up with their own personal opinion, and it states that loot boxes aren't technically gambling, but they are undermining public policy goals for gambling. The regulator also is calling for a Europe-wide policy on loot boxes so we can determine what exactly we want to do with them in the future. So the argument does come from Ariel in the form that they're saying that loot boxes always give you some sort of prize. That even if you do technically lose because you didn't get the item you wanted, or you didn't get legendary or something of value for you personally, you still got an item in the game. But also they said that they don't really like them because they rely on creating a feeling of a quote-unquote near miss, similar to slot machines, which encourages players to keep trying, which is exactly my problem with loot boxes. They rely on the same exact mechanics as slot machines do to keep you coming back to them, because you just feel like the next one will be the one that gives you whatever you want. But it's not true. You need to get lucky, and luck is not a factor that should be a part of rewards in, well, pretty much anything, I believe. So they also called on regulators in Europe, specifically the Gaming Regulators European Forum, to figure out some sort of a collective action on loot boxes to create what exactly the rules for loot boxes will be in Europe. And I do agree, this is the role of the government. It should protect citizens from getting abused. I'm not like libertarian, but I'm also not a socialist. But there are points of time where the government should step in and protect its citizens. That's its role. It's to protect our rights. And one of our rights, or at least the rights of children, should be that they shouldn't be exploited by companies because they figure out a way how to exploit them because they just aren't mentally developed yet. It's pretty obvious to me. And I do still think that loot boxes should be available, but only to adults. And even then, the adults should think very hard whether they want to support games which do include this sort of predatory mechanic, because I don't really see any other word to call this, really. But that doesn't mean that they will get banned in France, because under the definition in France, they do not fall within that definition. And okay, I can deal with that. The other question is, maybe then we should figure out and look very closely at the definition of gambling for the future, because, well, maybe the times have evolved and maybe it isn't satisfactory anymore. And also, one thing should be mentioned: this is not what's the name of the Argel's last word on loot boxes, as their position has been described as non-committal and unspecific. And Argel said that they will continue to keep looking into loot boxes and microtransactions in general. So maybe they are actually considering, I guess, expanding the definition of what exactly gambling is to include loot boxes. And then many companies and many games will have a big problem, because France is a big market and they will need to address it in one way or another. However, we'll see what happens, and Argel said that they will support more gambling regulation in the online era, which should happen to start somewhere in early 2019, and I will be taking a close look on their definition once they put it out, because I am really considering trying to start campaigning heavily against loot boxes. It's been a thing that has been pissing me off for quite some time now, and I do want to see it removed, or at least from games that get sold to minors. And by the way, I do not consider people of 18 years minors. I do not consider 16-year minors. I would say that children under the age of 15, on average, do not have the mental capacity to deal with such predatory tactics. Yes, there will be some that have the capacity to do this, but on average, they won't. And moving on to a bit more positive piece of news, let's take a look into Australia, where We Happy Few is finally going to be unbanned, as it finally got a rating. So this is a continuation of a story that happened actually a few months ago, when I'm thinking about it, as We Happy Few has been not rated by the Australian Classification Review Board, which is the equivalent of ESRB or PEGI in Europe. So the game couldn't have been sold in Australia, effectively banning it. But now they decided to give it a rating. It's going to be rated R18+, which means it's available only to adults, only to people of 18 years of age and higher up, but it also means that it is going to be accessible. The nice thing I would like to report here about is the fact that Compulsion Games, which are the developers of We Happy Few, didn't have to make any changes to get this revision, so that's a good thing. Initially, the classification was denied because the game depicts drugs use, and, well, to the review board, it, for some weird reason which I don't understand, it seemed like it's promoting it because you do get benefits in game, because there is this drug in game called Joy, which well, pretty much all the inhabitants of the world use, and you're one of the people who doesn't have to use it. But if you do, it means that the game will be slightly easier, as you will get fewer encounters, you have to go in fewer fights, you know, the typical thing. But from what I saw, even from trailers, it was very obvious that the drug was depicted in a very negative way, as it pretty much made all the people into violent psychopaths. And that, if you think that is a positive depiction, something is wrong with you, man. Like, really wrong with you. But in the end, the story has a happy ending. There is a classification now, and thus, We Happy Few will be sold in Australia. And that is always a positive ending. And with that being said, that's going to be it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's show. And if you did, please consider giving us a thumbs up here on YouTube and subscribing to the channel. If you're watching on Steam, maybe you want to give us an upvote and follow the blog. Either way, be sure to leave a comment and be sure to tune in tomorrow for more gaming news, as we are your source of daily gaming news every single day. See you guys later with more gaming content.